It is good to be home. Some of you I don't know. You've come to First Unity after I completed my service at the end of 2012. But I can assure you, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. It was the first Sunday of November 2008 when Reverend Temple invited me to come and give a guest speaking gig, and she said, well, if you like it, maybe there'll be a further conversation we can have. I more than liked it. I loved it. We had that conversation, and for almost 4 years, I had the grace, and it was a grace and the good fortune to be on staff here at First Unity Spiritual Campus. And I can assure you that any success I've had in ministry since that time is predicated on what I learned here, the opportunities I had here, and the invitation I had to step into my greatness, into my authenticity. And that opportunity and that invitation came through the things that I did very successfully and very well. And that opportunity came through the things that I did not do so gracefully or successfully. But always was the understanding, this is for you. This is not against you. So I feel like the luckiest guy in the world to be able to come back and to tell you that, and to tell you how blessed I am, because I have this to call home. So thank you all for that. Thank you, Reverend Temple. But we don't really talk about luck so much in New Thought, do we? Because luck is a four-letter word. We try to avoid that kind of language, right? But we hear a lot of that word used in a variety of different capacities. You know, some people talk about, it's just my luck, or some people have all the luck, or some people are down on their luck, or some people want to get lucky, and some people, you know, just blame everything on somebody else, and they're always looking to find, how can I get better luck? Well, if we understand what luck is, maybe we wouldn't be so excited to get it. Because really, by definition, it's simply a blessing or a not blessing, a good turn of events or a poor turn of events, depending on how you're determining that, beyond which you have any control. It's just our luck. Or I just got lucky. I watched Ocean's 13 yesterday morning, and there was a whole lot about people trying to make it big in Las Vegas and get lucky. And it's just the most interesting thing. And I remember what Thomas Jefferson, well, I don't remember what Thomas Jefferson said about anything. I wasn't there. He said, here's the thing about luck. I find that the harder I work, the more of it I have. And I live now in Virginia, so there's a lot of Thomas Jefferson, a lot of George Washington all over the place. But I'm very interested from a point of view of practical spirituality, how we can transcend our reliance on this external what? This external energy for good or bad. Because in our teaching, in our New Thought teaching, we focus on consciousness, intentionality. We don't need lucky rabbit's feet or lucky coins or lucky this or lucky that. What we need is disciplined this. We need a mind that can see opportunities. We need a heart that is willing to embrace life in its fullness and be teachable. Because when we are teachable, then we can make the most of every opportunity that's before us, and we realize the principle that no one and no thing is ever against us, because we are equipped to lean into it. I remember in the autumn of 1989, November is really a significant month for me. It was the first Sunday of November. First Sunday of November seems to be very important for me. Now the second Sunday of November. A friend invited me to go to church with her. And I was working in the shipping industry, and we developed a relationship over the telephone. I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, and she was in Norfolk, Virginia. And one weekend I said to her, Lynn, what are you doing this weekend? And she said, oh, I'm going on a retreat. And I said, is it like something with your church? And she said, no. And I said, is it something new age, like Eckankar? And she goes, no, but I have friends who are into that. She goes, Russell. I could tell she was at work, because she got real soft. Russell, you're hundreds of miles away. I'll just tell you, It's an AA retreat. I'm an alcoholic. I said, that's great. We've done the family plan. So our conversations became life in America. We just call it as we see it. So our conversations became more and more personal, less and less business. Eventually she came down for a weekend and we were getting ready to go out and do something on a Saturday night. And she said, hey, I haven't missed church in a year. And I said, well, okay, we can go to church tomorrow. What? Because I knew I wasn't going to be hungover. And I said, it's an issue sometimes for some folks. So I said, well, what church is it? And she said, Unity. And I remember the summer prior to that, I was feeling the need for some sort of sacred community. And I thought, the Unitarians, they have to take everyone. So I looked in the phone book, and there was the Unitarian listing, and somehow my eye landed on the Unity listing down below. Well, it was a Saturday when I looked at that listing, closed the phone book, went out with my friends, and Sunday just didn't happen as I thought it would. So anyway, I never went. But I remembered there was a Unity church. So when she said Unity, I said, we have one of those. We went the next day, and I knew I was home there too. I heard a teaching, I had heard a philosophy that said I was okay as is, and if I wanted to be better than that, I had choices and opportunities. I learned a message, there was nothing inherently wrong with me or nothing inherently wrong with anybody else unless they chose to believe that that was the case. I decided that was not the case. I had some unlearning I had to do, some releasing to do. And after a year in that ministry, I called my parents on the telephone and I said to them, I don't know if I've been in therapy for a year or if I've been going to church, but I sure feel good about myself. And that has made all the difference. It really wasn't luck that got me to Unity Christ Church of Wilmington. It was an open heart and an open mind, willing to listen to the voice of Spirit within and say, do this. And it really wasn't luck that brought me to First Unity Spiritual Campus. It was an open mind and an open heart that when the invitation was offered, said, yes, come, get involved, be willing to stretch, be willing to grow. But I still find, even in Unity, and I'm not taking anybody's inventory, you can do that for your neighbors just as well as I can. I still find that many of us have the temptation to want to blame someone or something for our conditions, our situations, for our bad luck or our good luck. And we gussy it up in any number of different ways, but that's the reality. We're still looking for someone to blame. And I once heard a story about torture that speaks to this matter. And I realize we don't talk about this in Unity very often. But in this context, I think we can make an exception. And the story I want to share is a brief one, comes from a Catholic priest, actually, and it's called The Torture Chamber. So, teacher, complained a disciple, I'm never happy or satisfied with anything. I feel like I live inside a torture chamber and seem to always be plagued by bad things always happening to me. Is my unhappiness the curse of living on planet Earth? The teacher replied, well, if you feel that you're living in a torture chamber, you could just move and go somewhere else. Yet you can be perfectly fine right where you are if you realize that the source of your unhappiness is not a curse. Rather, it's because someone is torturing you. Of course, said the student. Satan. That great fiend is torturing me day and night because I'm on my spiritual path. I'm wanting to have clarity and purity, and he's out to get me. That's the price I'm paying for being on this path. Hold on, said the wise teacher. Don't go running off into some foreign realm when your torturer is closer to home. So tell me, begged the student, who is my torturer so I can escape? To find your torturer, the teacher replied, you must first recognize the torture chamber in which you're being tormented. And the student sat wrapped like a mummy in confusion. So the teacher continued, "You'll find it on top of your shoulders. Climb the ladder of discipline, and with patience and gentle persistence, remodel your torture chamber." Remodel your torture chamber. He's basically saying, take a look at what you think. Take a look at what you feel, and then start asking yourself questions such as, why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this? And more importantly, what do I choose to do about it now? Because in New Thought, you can't get off blaming somebody about your problems. There's a situation that you can identify as problematic, then the reality is you have the answer in the other hand. You just have to be gentle and persistent. I love in the book Prosperity by Charles Fillmore, co-founder of the Unity movement, written in the height of the Great Depression. He comes out with a book entitled Prosperity, one of the best sellers they ever had. And in that material, on almost every page, or so it seems to me, is the word persistence. Persist, 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 persist. Don't give up. Don't give up. I love from the Dhammapada, which is the foundational textbook of Buddhism, it says, we are what we think. And we know in New Thought that includes what we feel as well, because feelings are simply thoughts that are not yet speech ripe. We are what we think, and all that we are arises with our thoughts, and with our thoughts we make our world. So speak and act with a pure mind, and happiness will follow you like a shadow, unbreakable. Or as Charles Fillmore, co-founder of the Unity movement, once said, mankind's greatest gift from God is the capacity to think. But we have to slow down sometimes, don't we? And ask ourselves, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Where do these thoughts and feelings come from? What am I willing to do about the ones that are not helpful? And then persist in that exercise, in that energy of changing our minds and changing our thoughts. We can do it. We all can do it. We do it all the time. We just want to make that process conscious, because sometimes it's unconscious and we pick up the collective groupthink of the people around us, of the people on the reality television shows, of the people we see in the news, and we have to ask ourselves, is this really a path down which I want to go? Is this really a vibration I want to add my energy to? And when we become willing to make that conscious, then amazing things can happen. You know, there was a story in the Gospel of Mark where, chapter 12, one of the scribes came near and heard them disputing with one another, and seeing that he answered them well, he asked Jesus, which commandment is the greatest of all? And Jesus answered, the first is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and all your strength. And the second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. But here's part of the problem in that, is there is an implication that we love ourselves so much that we're always going to do the best things for ourselves, that we will take corrective measures when those are called for, and that we will respect and love all others in the same way we love ourselves. And the reality is that's the problem. Because if you have a human skin suit, and it appears all of you do, except the discarnate entities in the front row, your way in which you are loving yourself may be incomplete, may be unskillful. You may have picked up some bad habits and helpful habits along the way. Self-condemnation, because you don't look like the retouched photograph on the magazine cover. That's not a real person anyway. You may be judging, comparing yourself to someone else. They have more money, they have a bigger boat, they have more this, they have more that. And you might look at yourself and say, well, there's something wrong with me because I don't have all those things. And that quality, of diminished quality of self-love gets projected onto them, whoever them is to you. That's why we must come back and realize how fortunate we are that we can change that dynamic and be willing to love and embrace ourselves. That's why we have meditation in our service. We don't just do that just because it's nice and that's what we do in unity. Amen and amen, world without end, amen. We do that because that is a spiritual practice that grounds us in the truth of our being, that connects us to the earth and that life energy. Mother Nature doesn't judge itself. It just does what it does, because that's what it's here to do. We are wise to receive the gifts of our spiritual practice so that we can love ourselves, love our Creator in us, and then be the expressions of that Creator and that love in the world. Luck has nothing to do with it. However, I do want to close with a few words from a spiritual master we don't hear from a whole lot in faith communities, but I think it's time that we give Ian Fleming his due. And this is from Casino Royale. Fleming says, above all, he liked it that everything was one's own fault, or we might say everything was one's own responsibility. There was only oneself to praise or blame. Luck was a servant and not a master. Luck had to be accepted with a shrug or taken advantage of to the hilt, but it had to be understood and recognized for what it was and not be confused with a faulty appreciation of the odds. For at gambling, the deadly sin is to mistake bad play for bad luck. And luck in all of its moods had to be loved and not feared. So my message, my invitation to you, your homework for this week is to ask yourself, is this a matter of luck, or is my life a matter of love? Peace be with you and namaste.